Hi, my name is Jenelle Riley. I'm an editor at Variety. Thank you so much for joining us for this SAG-AFTRA Foundation conversation at home with Anthony Anderson of Blackish. For his portrayal of Andre Johnson, Anderson has already been nominated for 2 Golden Globe Awards, 3 SAG Awards, and 8 Emmy Awards as both star and producer of the show. Please welcome Anthony Anderson. That's a pretty impressive lineup.
quite an impressive introduction.
And I didn't even get into all the other things. You know, you're also a SAG Award nominee for The Departed. Like, I could go on and on.
Yes.
But because this is primarily an audience of SAG actors who watch us, I always like to start by asking, how did you get your SAG card?
Wow, how did I get my SAG card? Long story short, the Wayans brothers are all friends of mine. Marlon Wayans and I went to Howard together. I was a couple years ahead of him, but they were doing their the Wayans brothers show. And I was always hanging out on set with them, and ended up being an extra on the show, just hanging. It was just a group of us. It was a group scene. So hung out with my boys, all friends of ours, and ended up, doing that for a day. What I didn't know was that I was being Taft-Hartley from that one day of work. So I went and auditioned a couple of months later for a movie that the Wayans brothers had written and produced, directed by Keenan Ivory Wayans, their brother. Don't be a menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood. I auditioned. I was cast in the role. It was only a one-day shoot. I got the call that I got the role. I was cast. All of a sudden, I get a call. I'm Station 12. Station 12? What does that mean? I don't know. I called the union. They were like, "Oh, you're a must join." I was like, "How? Really? How does that work? I've never really. I thought I could work it." They're like, "No, you did some background work on the Wayans brothers show, and I was a must join for Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood." Sad story. I wasn't going to make enough money on the production to pay my must join, so I had to turn the role down.
No.
And I couldn't go to my friends because we were all struggling artists, so I couldn't even go to several friends, be like, "Hey, can you give me a couple $100 and let's just pull this together so I can join the union?" So I basically went and found a 9-to-5, worked, saved up enough money. And as I saved up enough, it was a couple of grand, $3,000 or something like that. I can't remember what the price was. As I was getting closer and closer to my goal, I ended up being cast on another television show, which paid me considerably much more than what I was going to make for that one day on Don't Be a Menace. And I ended up becoming a member, and that show was In the House with Debbie Allen and LL Cool J on NBC television.
Wow. I'm glad it all worked out.
Look, I'm a firm believer things happen when they're supposed to happen, not when you want them to happen.
Although Don't Be a Menace was a pretty great movie, I also have to add. So
trust me, it was. And I will tell you this. I went to my agent at the time. It was a small boutique agency. I won't mention the name. And I asked him for the loan. And I was like, "You know how much money I'm making on this. This is what I owe. So can you help me out? I will endorse the check over to you once we work and all that, and everything will be fine." He told me no. And I was like, I get it. I understand. That's how you operate your business. I can't be upset with you for not doing that. But that let me know that there was something lacking in the belief of me from that the owner of the agency, not just my agent. He was the owner of the agency. And I was like, okay, I get it. I stayed with him for a while. And once I had become the big fish in the small pond, it was it was naturally time to move on. And that was part of the conversation that we had. Because the conversation that he had with me earlier on and when I first signed with him was that nothing is ever personal. It's all business. And he has to let clients go and all this. And he said, I feel bad when I have to do that, but I have to let them know that it's business and nothing personal. Well, it came time for me to move on to bigger and better. And I had to have that conversation with him and had to use his words against him. Hey, it's not personal. It's business. It's no hard feelings. I have to move on.
And how did he take it?
He didn't take it as well as I took it when he told me he wasn't going to loan me the money. He was like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're going to go over to William Morris? Yeah, they're William Morris. And this was William Morris 25 years ago. I was like, yeah, they're William Morris. They have a packaging department. They have a commercial department. They have a television film. I was like, you are just this little mom and pop shop. Nothing against that, but you didn't have a commercial department. I was heavily into commercials at that time. And I just need something bigger and better than what I have right now. And he took it really personal and hard. And I was like, wow. Did
you remind him about the loan?
I did. No, that was part of the conversation. That's how the conversation started. Oh, yes, I reminded him about that.
That's great. And congratulations on Blackish. It's just finished its 6th season. It's already spawned 2 successful spinoffs. I actually want to go back to the beginning. How did the show first find its way to you, and what interested you in telling the story of this family?
Well, Kenya Barris and I, who were managed by the same person, Brian Dobbins, Kenya and I had never met. And unbeknownst to me, he had been trying to meet me for some time now. Not about this project, but to meet me to see if we could come up with something together and be partners somehow. And it finally happened. And we met at a little bar restaurant on Santa Monica called Laurel Hardware.
I love Laurel Hardware.
Yeah, and we sat there and we talked about the landscape of television and what was missing from it for us as viewers, as young Black men who grew up watching Cosby, All in the Family, The Jeffersons, Good Times. Excuse me, and those were the conversations that was the conversation that we had. And we realized that we had the same tastes, and our conversation quickly turned from business to personal. And we just talked about our families. And, and that was the common denominator between the both of us. He's first generation successful from Inglewood, California. I'm first generation successful from Compton, California. Both of us are the only African-American families living in our neighborhoods. Our families were the only, or one of few, African-American families at the private schools that our children attended. And we just talked about the trappings of our success and what we were going through raising children in this homogenized world, but to also hold on to their own identity, to know who they were and where they come from. And that was our conversation. And at one point, Kenya said, you know what, Aunt? I feel like I went from raising a Black family to a Blackish family. And we laughed about it. And we continued to share all these stories. And a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks later, he called me up and he was like, yo, I got an idea for our show. And I said, what is it? And he just regurgitated everything that we talked about. And he was like, and we're going to call it Blackish. I was like, bet, that's what we're going to do. And from that moment on, we just started telling each other stories. And we had come up with a pitch, and we took it to all the major networks, and we sold it. Oh, before that, he came to me and said, hey, what do you think about Lawrence Fishburne playing your father? I was like, man, Lawrence and I have been talking about trying to do something together for years. We're friends. He's like, cool, because he's already agreed to sign on. And we went and pitched it and sold it in every room that we took it to. And ABC was the best deal for us, just in terms of family programming, the eyeballs that would be on the network, and what they were offering. And the rest is history.
And I think people might not remember that this was at a time when diversity was not as prominent as it is now on television. It sort of paved the way, I think, for shows like Fresh Off the Boat and, things like that. Did you sort of, it sounds like it wasn't too hard to sell because it was like such a great package, but did you encounter any resistance?
No, I don't think we encountered, we didn't encounter any resistance, because I believe the stories that we were telling were genuine and authentic to the lives that Kenya and I are living. And I believe that's why our show resonates with an audience the way that it does, because of its authenticity. Mm-hmm. Before I finish answering the question, when we shot the pilot and I took the pilot around the country before it aired, more people in the audience said, when I look at your family on television, I see my family. And that quote came from every non-Black family or non-Black person that was in the audience. And that's when I knew we had something special. Now, speaking to any resistance, no, because the stories were genuine and authentic, and you can't deny that. And no, it sold in every room. It sold in the very first room we took it to, and they're like, we want it right now. He's like, well, we have 5 other meetings that we need to go to after this. That we need it, we want it. Yeah, thank you. And we'll let you know if it's still on the table once we're done. But out of respect, we have to go take these other 5 meetings. Wow. And that's what we did.
Had you ever encountered something like that before? I feel like Hollywood is always a story of resistance.
Something to that degree or that level, no. Hollywood is about resistance and about change and about we like that idea, but how about you flip it like this? There's no flipping in the telling of our personal stories. Either you're with it, or you're not, and that's cool. We won't take it personally, but there's no flipping what we want to tell and the stories that we want to tell.
From the start, Blackish has never shied away from doing episodes that really looked at tough issues. Was that something you want to do from the beginning?
That's the brainchild of Kenya. And we took pages from, we're both big fans of Norman Lear. So we took pages from all of Norman Lear's shows, All in the Family, The Jeffersons, Good Times, What's Happening. These shows had lead characters who were unapologetic in who they were, and very opinionated, and stubborn and bigoted. And all of that. But you knew where you stood with them because of the truth that they were living in. And you know what? I sometimes listen to my own self and I forgot your question.
Just if it was a discussion you had, like we are going to do some episodes.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yes, we took pages from that, and the Cosby Show. You looked at the things that, the subject matter that they talked about. Racism, sexism, classism, colorism, all of that were things that we took note of and we wanted our show to be about. And we weren't reinventing the wheel. We were just adding our wheel to the cog in the machine. And that's what it was. We just wanted to tell, real stories from a specific point of view. And talk about and tackle the issues that, characters like Kenya, myself, or Andre Johnson are going through within society, with their family in tow.
I mean, I think it would be hard to do an episode about, say, police brutality, just to make such a quality episode, but you guys managed to do it and make it entertaining and informative, and it's a comedy. You even make it funny. how do you sort of, another example is when the show covered the election, I didn't think there would be anything to laugh about, talking about
Right.
Trump being elected, and yet you managed to do it. I don't know if that's full credit to the writers or Kenya or,
That's exactly what it is. Full credit to Kenya, who was the head of this monster that we had, and his supporting staff and everyone he put into place to for our show to be successful, and all of the writers. So it first starts with the writers who put the words on the page that we bring to life, that we breathe life into. Without those words on the page, there's nothing. So yeah, I tip my hat to Kenya and to Jonathan Groff and to Kenny Smith and to Courtney Lilly, and to everybody who's had that position or in the position of showrunner and executive producer on our show. For being able to tell these stories and walk that line, and not be afraid to confront these issues, but also, as you said, confront these issues in an entertaining way where the message isn't beat over your head, but the message still gets through. It's still heartfelt, and you can still laugh and learn at the same time.
And we also have to give some credit to this amazing cast. I mean, this is just a flawless ensemble. You and Lawrence were signed on from the beginning. I want to start with Tracy Ellis Ross, who plays Rainbow, your wife. Did you sort of have to have chemistry reads with people to know if it would work? How did you settle upon her?
She was the best for the job. Fun story. All of the actresses who came in to read for Rainbow, it was Valentine's Day that we had this particular casting session on. So apropos, Valentine's Day, we're auditioning the lead for the show to be my wife. And I had a rose for every actress who came in that day. Just thank you for coming in from me to you. And Tracy came in 3/4 of the way through. And we had seen some pretty amazing actresses or actors. We had seen some pretty amazing actors up until that point. Tracy came in, needed no adjustments on either one of the scenes that we did. And before she walked out of the room, I turned to her and I said, "Hey, Trace," because we had known each other for a while. She said, "Yeah, what's up, man?" I said, "Go out there and tell them other chicks they can go home. The job is yours."
Oh, wow.
She said, "I'm not going to tell them that." I was like, okay, but the job is yours. And it was no disrespect to any of the actors who had come in or any of the actors that we hadn't seen yet. But when Tracy had come in and delivered what she needed to deliver, there was no need to go on and look at anyone else anymore or to consider anyone who had come in before she did. And like I say, no slight to any of the actresses that were there that day. But Tracy, and as you can see, the magic that you see, that you've seen on screen between the two of us for the last 6 years was the magic that was instantly evident when she walked into the room. And, starting with her and ending with all of the children, I got to personally handpick everyone that you see on our show outside of Lawrence, since, we decided to bring him on in the beginning. But I sat there and looked at Martin and said, "Oh, she's going to be a star." I looked at Miles Brown. "Oh, this kid is phenomenal." Marcus Scribner. I was like, "Yo, you're just like my son." And then Yara Shahidi, we're basically wearing the same outfit, same shoes, same color scheme in our clothes that day. I was like, "Yo, okay, you're my daughter," and that is how it happened. Did I forget anybody? Marseille, Miles, Yara, Marcus. That's it.
Well, not any of the children, but what about Jennifer Lewis? She's so fantastic.
I met Jennifer in a psych ward, and I said, "We need a crazy mama." "Oh, okay, might as well get this crazy actress." No, yeah, it was brought to me. Believe that was Kenya's idea. What do you think of Jennifer Lewis? What, the mother of all of Black Hollywood? We'd be foolish not to cast her. And lo and behold, it all worked out.
When you build this great family for television, I'm sort of curious. There was a whole season arc a couple seasons ago where Dre and Rainbow split up, and it was really emotional and kind of hard to watch. Was it sort of hard for you as an actor, but someone who has been playing Dre for so long, to go through that?
It's interesting. What Dre and Bo was going through at that time, Kenya and his wife Rainbow were going through, me and my wife Alvina were going through it at the same time. So when, you hear things like art imitates life, well, that's exactly what our show is all about. It's about telling our stories, our truths. So, yeah, we were both experiencing this in real time, in real life. And Kenya wanted to talk about it. And he came to me and said, yo, I'm thinking about this arc at the end of the season of having you guys get separated. We talked about it for a bit. I said, I don't have a problem with it. Let's go. It's what real people go through. It's what we're going through. And I'm pretty sure it's what our audience who's watching this show has gone through, is going through, will go through, and will understand it. And we would be remiss if we didn't address this issue, because nothing is ever perfect.
Yeah.
It's about getting through those trials and tribulations and coming out on the other side, a better individual, and a better couple, and a better unit, and a more loving family together.
Was it challenging though? Like, it seems like most of the time Blackish is so fun, and I don't want to say lighthearted, that's not the right word, but it usually ends on an upbeat note, and that arc went on for a few weeks. I'm just sort of curious if it's the sort of thing you take.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, that arc went on for the last 4 episodes of that season. And not unlike all the other shows that we were dealing with, police brutality, the election, or whatever, we found the humor in that. We found some humor along the way in these episodes. I mean, they didn't feel heavy while we were doing it, but they were heavier than our normal subject matter. And, Tracy and I would, sit back and have these discussions in between takes, and at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of that episode, and it's like, yo, I'd be glad when this is over, because we're so jovial on set and in between all the things that we do. But in this particular instance, it was such an emotional place for us to stay in and to be in that, we didn't have our normal fun interactions in between takes. We were taking that time to ourselves to go decompress from, all right, this is kind of heavy right now. My family is falling apart, and I have to stay on task and ride this wave. I can't depart from this and be my jovial self and have fun and make these jokes. I want to stay true to this moment. We want to stay true to this moment and true to these characters at that particular time, that it made it a little heavier than what it normally was. We understood that we were still making quality television and that it was going to be a little different than what our normal episodes were. And if you stay with us, ride with us, go along with this on this journey, it's going to pay off in the long run. And I believe that's what people did. It was emotional for people watching at home. I mean, I still get stopped on the street to this day when people say, hey man, those were some heavy episodes. I went case in point, I went and visited a friend. And while I was there, their neighbor saw me get out of my car. And I just saw him loading some stuff in the van. He was like, hey, man, watching your show. Love your show. Going through that right now. And I looked at him, and then I looked and see what he was doing. He was moving his stuff out of his home that he had been sharing with his wife because they were getting separated. I didn't realize that it was a U-Haul van and a moving van taking his memories out of the place that he made these memories in. And he was like, yo, your show's getting me through a lot right now. And we sat and we had a conversation about it. And I believe they worked it out after a while. But it was heavy for the people that were watching the show. And, you know, when people are invested in your show like that, and are feeling and going through the same emotions and on that emotional roller coaster that you as this character is going on, they are emotionally invested in you and want to take that ride. And, you know, I hope we haven't and will not disappoint them, you know, while they're on that ride with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that end, what ended up being the biggest challenge of season 6? And it could be something completely different. I think when Dre walks in on his parents having sex in the Love Boat finale, I don't know how you got through that scene without laughing.
It was a lot of laughter going on in that scene. And you know, it's crazy. I didn't even think about this while we were filming it. That actually happened to me. I never told that story to Kenya or to any of our writers, but I'm pretty sure that's happened to a lot of us. And I really didn't start thinking about that until, you know, we were out promoting this episode because it's the season finale. And I was like, oh, snap. I'm telling the story one day or just talking about it. And then I just had this vision of me being a 13-year-old walking in on my parents doing the do. And I had to creep out as if no one had saw me. And it was, yeah, it was crazy to witness that. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
It sounds like 13-year-old you handled it better than Dre did as a fully grown adult.
Me handled it much better than 40-year-old Dre did. Dre could not handle it. That was the last thing that he thought he would ever see. He thought he might walk in on his mom and some young boy or something else, you know, or doing something while watching some Bumble or Tinder live feed. He didn't ever think that he would be seeing Ruby and Pops doing that after all that they've gone through. Mm-hmm. And you know that was you know, that was an interesting episode, a touching episode where you saw the love that a son had for his mother. Even though he wanted this relationship all these years so bad with his dad, and that relationship had finally started to repair itself, and they found this mutual respect for one another and admiration for one another. But now Dre was torn because everything his father's ever done with his mother has never been great. It's always ended in a boat being exploded, you know, or him being shot, or all kinds of things that Ruby and Pops have gone through. So he didn't want them to go through that again, because then he would be forced to choose between his mother and his father. And throughout Dre's entire life, it's always been his mother and him. And he didn't want to be in the position to get rid of this man, his dad, and this relationship that he had finally got, that he had been striving for all his life. And that's why he goes to his dad and it's like, hey, Pops, man, look, what's your intentions with my mom, man? I'm not joking. I'm serious. I'll fight you. We're going to have to do this because I am not going to allow you to do what you've done in the past. And they had to have a real man-to-man conversation. And Dre realized that he needed to step back after having that conversation with his dad and his mom, that they were adults and that she had been choosing me over everything all these years. And now she's finally able to choose her. And in choosing her, she's choosing Pops because that's who she truly loves. And I had to accept that.
It's such a sweet episode. It ends on such a sweet note. I have to admit, as the boat was pulling away, I was afraid it would blow up.
First you saw Ruby Swan dining off the bow of the boat, and then it blows up.
There was a moment where I was like, okay, everything's okay. They wouldn't do that to us.
No. We look, we're thinking of another spinoff for this couple, this old couple. So there's no blowing up.
I mean, this is kind of crazy. You have two hugely successful, not just, that people are watching them, but they're really good spin-offs. Did you ever imagine that you'd have this whole extended universe?
That's something Kenya and I talked about in the beginning. We took a page from, Bill Cosby and The Cosby Show, from The Cosby Show, and then spinning off A Different World for Lisa Bonet. We had always been thinking ahead in terms of, Yara Shahidi graduating first from the family and what we were going to do with that. And he was like, yo, I think we should do this. And I'm like, yo, I'm with that. And, a couple of years down the line, that's what we were doing. That's what we were doing.
It's so funny. I always thought if I ever were to talk to you about this show, I would just ask, could Dre be a little nicer to Junior? It's so funny to me how I know he loves his son, but
there's no comedy in a father being nice to his nerdy son. There's no comedy in that. I do believe that, Dre has softened over the years. In particular, this past season, accepting Junior for who he is. And I think that's actually started towards the end of our fifth season. When Junior moved out, Junior was working at Stevens and Lido and all of that. Dre was finally accepting that his son was becoming a man and, had to live with the consequences of the choices that he was making as a young man, good, bad, or indifferent. And as a father, he had to support that. And, it was a lot of wrestling to get Dre to that point. But that's where he is now.
And now they're working together. So, and he's actually good at the job. He kind of has to respect that.
Much better than what I thought he was. Probably rivaling the job that Dre is doing as senior vice president. Junior has actually come into his own. And speaking of that, Marcus Scribner has come into his own as a young actor, a young heartthrob, and all of the children. But Marcus is I think going to be the next big thing for young Hollywood.
Yeah, he's fantastic. It always makes me think about when you mentioned that gentleman, spoke to you as you were visiting your friend. When people see you on the street, what do they want to talk about the show? Do they want to give you advice? Do they want to get advice from you? What is it that strikes people the most? My relationship with Marcus is fun. Man, why are you so hard on that boy, man? Why are you so hard on that boy, man? Let that boy live. I feel seen.
Yeah. And that, and, the stuff that happens in Stevens and Lido. They're like, man, y'all crazy at that job, man. Y'all crazy at that job. That Dion Cole. Ooh, and the old white dude. I was like, Peter McKenzie. Yeah, Stevens. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. So it's, it's fun. A lot of people just sit back and are entertained by what we do. And, it's like, yo, man, you crazy. You crazy. Why you do that? That's it. Man, why you do that? Why did I do what? Man, you know what I'm talking about. Why you do that to that boy? They wrote it. I did it.
I don't feel so alone anymore. And by the way, I think your coworkers have actually started to get a little self-awareness. Like I noticed in the finale when they're picking the girlfriends and he picks the white girl, he's like, oh, I see what I did wrong there, which I don't know if that would have happened 5 seasons ago. No,
it wouldn't have. I mean, it's just how these characters are maturing and growing, all of us.
Yeah, at a very slow rate for the people that Dre works with, but they are growing.
Well, it has to be slow so we can stretch the show out for at least another 4 or 5 seasons. It has to be some type of arrested development. They just can't do that. No, it just has to be incremental. And sometimes it may go backwards just so we can go forward.
I actually wanted to ask you about that. Where would you like to see this character in the show go, or can you give us any hints as to what's ahead?
Oh, wow. Not sure of what's ahead. Our writers, we got ahead of ourselves this season. So they had been breaking stories the last 4 to 6 weeks of the season, and I don't know what those are. I won't know what those are until I get back and read them. Read them with the rest of the cast. I get phone calls. It's like, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Any objections, or what are your thoughts? Do you think you would want to do this? And for the most part, everything that Courtney Lilly, who's our showrunner now, everything that he's pitched to me, I've signed off on, and was like, yo, that would be dope for us to do. As far as where I see Dre, I don't know. I just want him to continue to evolve and to grow. Someone asked me earlier today, what do I see, or what have I learned, or what am I bringing to Dre, or Dre bringing to me? And my thing was, I bring to Dre everything that I'm learning in life. And it's about the experiences that I'm having that allow Dre to live and breathe and experience what he's experiencing on our show. So I just want, the character just to continue to grow. Maybe open his own marketing firm after a while. Who knows? But just as long as there's continued growth and maturity. Dre is, one of the biggest kids, and it's like, let's see what's going to happen next.
By the way, we're doing this conversation over Zoom, obviously, because we're in a pandemic right now. And I want to remind everyone watching at home, for information on SAG-AFTRA Foundation's COVID-19 Fund, you can look in the comments. And I'm just sort of asking everyone, what are you sort of doing during this time? How are you staying creative? Are there things you're watching or reading that have sort of helped you?
What's helping me? I'm out in my garden more. Years ago, I started a garden in the community garden in the neighborhood that I'm in. I have 1,000 square feet out there, and it was my place of zen. It was where I would go to get away from the family, to get away from work, to get away from everything. I'd put on my boots and my gloves and my overalls, and I'd just go in there and I'd play with the earth, and I'd grow everything that was in season in terms of fruits and vegetables. So I'm doing that in my backyard now. Because I have a little bit more control of access here as opposed to the community garden. And so I've been building garden boxes. I've been growing from seeds. I'm trying to force myself to read more. That's what I told myself I would do during this shelter in place. I haven't started yet, but I've bought books. And first, what I should have done, I should have started with the books I have in my office library to begin with. But I was like, no, I've had those for a while. I got some new ones that I think I may want to read. Let me buy these new ones first. So it's just forcing myself to read more and to use that muscle But I'm just here with the family, exercising my mind and my body. So when we come out of this, I have a renewed vigor on what it is that I want to do, what it is that I need to do, what it is that I should be doing in my personal and professional life.
Well, I can't wait for you guys to get back to work because I need some new episodes. I really, I really rely on the Johnson family more than I think I realized during this time. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, congratulations on all the success.
No, thank you, Jenelle. Thank you for having me. And everybody that's sitting at home listening and watching right now, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for not just supporting me and us in this venture with Blackish, but everything that I've ever been a part of. So thank you for your continued support.